two brothers, and one of them was greedy, greedy brothers. Two brothers, and one of them was greedy, greedy.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to a new episode of Chatting with Lady C. Hello Mum, how are you?
I am very well, thank you, honey. And
Amazing.
how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. I have all sorts of things going on behind the scenes, which are very interesting. But I can't speak about them yet. I can't speak about them, but they are fascinating, fascinating stuff that's going on behind the scenes, which I hope I'll be able to share with you sooner rather than later, but not at the moment. So, any questions for me?
Yes, so for today, our first question is from Kate to Create. Word is the royals have allowed an extension for Megxit. Most people on social media are not pleased with this decision. What do you make of the decision after 12 months of this couple not respecting what was expected of them? No use of royal titles, no respecting the graves of fallen soldiers to be a part of the Remembrance Day, etc.
I think we need to, actually, I have to say, I think that's a really good question. I think it's very appropriate and the timing is very good because it's coming up for the end of the year review, which, according to journalists who are being fed stuff by Harry and Meghan, certainly, the review has been kicked into touch and deferred indefinitely. And I'm not surprised. I mean, I have you know, the public needs to understand that Harry is a member of a family that loves him. If you love someone and they're a member of your family and they have derailed, which there is no doubt he has derailed, and there is also little doubt that nobody in the royal or even the establishment world is in favour of his derailment. But what do you do when the prodigal son has departed? What do you do? If you have compassion, if you love the person involved, sometimes even when people do awful things, and I'm not saying that Harry has done awful things. I mean, I'm referring to, when some people kill and their parents still stand by them. They might not like what they have done. They might disapprove of it violently, but they will still take the view, that is my child. It is my spiritual duty, for whatever reason, and God knows I find it mystifying, but since it appears to be my destiny, I will remain that child's parent, even when I violently disapprove of what that child has done. And it's not that uncommon to have so compassionate a reaction. And I think people need to understand that the royal family are caught between a rock and a hard place. They are human, they have feelings, they love Harry, even if they do not like what he is about and what he has been doing. And sometimes when you have a situation like this, there are really only two ways of dealing with it. Either you wash your hands of the individual, or you try to find a way to maintain the relationship and keep the links going as much as possible, while at the same time not enabling and not allowing the individual in question to drag you down too much. I mean, everybody gets sullied when, you know, there is something untoward happening in their family. But the compassionate thing to do, and I think the royals have behaved with compassion in this situation, is to effectively give them enough rope till they hang themselves, and hopefully when they do that, they'll come to their senses. Simple as that. What do you think?
I think today's generation, people just allow anybody, mostly their children, of course, to just let them do what they want. Nobody's forced into going to the school that your parents wanted you to go to, but from like back in the days. It's actually the child that makes the decision, the school that he would like to go after he's he's got to the age of deciding for his own self, really. So I think but for his position, it's a bit annoying, because like he had a great position and he just like let it go. So that's not really cool. But I understand his view of wanting to do his own thing, but if you want to do your own thing, then give up the whole thing. Don't say you don't want to do it, but you're still holding on to half of it just in case you need to run back.
Also, of course, and you're absolutely right, and the bit that he's hanging on to, of course, is the bit that he needs to exploit financially, because what he's hanging on to is his royal status and his title and the very thing that he has turned his back on. He knows, and she knows, and all their PR people know, are the only thing that makes them marketable. Without that, they would not be marketable. Although, funnily enough, if they voluntarily gave up their royal status, and they rarely genuinely did it voluntarily, without being shoved into it or stripped of it, I think that would be a great marketing tool. But I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen.
No, I don't think so.
No. Next question, Helen.
So for our next question today is from Maya Jane. The funny thing is that according to DNA reports, both William and Harry have inherited American Indian blood. What do you think?
Well, I'm the person who revealed it to the world in, I think it was my Diana biography in 1992. It might have been in Royal Marriages 1993, but I have a feeling it was in Diana in Private, the Princess Nobody Knows in 1992. What do I think? I think it's absolutely sound. It's absolutely solid. There is no doubt that Eliza Keogh was partly Armenian and partly Indian. There's no doubt. And not only did I reveal it in my book on Diana, I think. Anyway, it was one of the two books. But I also cover it in People of Colour and the Royals, which was published about 2 or 3 years ago. And it was interesting because when I revealed this, there was so much else that I revealed in the book that was of interest to people. You know, for instance, the fact that Diana had had an affair with Barry Manicky, the fact that Diana erroneously believed that Barry Manicky had been rubbed out by her like this, the authorities, when he certainly had not been, the fact that she had had a long-standing affair with James Hewitt, the fact that Charles was having an affair with Camilla. There was such a wealth of information that slid through, and nobody really commented upon it until the Indians a few years ago picked it up. Somebody in India must have read my book and thought, oh, this is good. This is going to be good for us. And they actually approached William and asked him for a sample of blood for them to do a mitochondrial DNA test on his blood. And he gave it. And it proved incontrovertibly that he and Harry, obviously because they definitely have the same mother, so it's got to be Harry as well, have Indian blood. So then it was front page news in India, and then it became pretty big news over the rest of the world. I don't think many newspapers said this came from Lady Colin Campbell's book. I'm pretty sure they didn't. But so anyway, I think it's cool. I think it's nice that they have Indian blood. I think it's also nice that they have African blood, because there is little doubt, as I pointed out in my book People of Colour and the Royals, that most of the European royal families, contrary to popular belief, have rather strong strains of African blood, largely through two particular sources. All of that is in the book. I'm not going to belabor the point now in a question. If you're interested, I'd suggest you get the book and read it, because it really is fascinating to discover that the royal family, rather more than the aristocracy, are the ones who are mixed race. It's very interesting. But of course, it's now a very small percentage of their blood, so to speak. But it is interesting, isn't it?
It is.
You know? And of course, because the royals intermarried so frequently over the centuries, this African blood shows up many more times in their lineage than if, for instance, they were an aristocrat, or if they were an ordinary person, where, for instance, Madrigana of Pharaoh might show up on somebody else's family tree once. She'll show up 6, 8, 10, and 32 times on another person's family tree. It's really interesting. So, which means, of course, that their dose of the blood is much stronger than, because it's so many times compounded by intermarriage. Did you find that? Do you think that's interesting?
Like, a lot of people have been doing it at the moment, like just doing DNA tests to see like a little bit more of their background, and they find out like they're not even just English. Well, because I've talked to it with an English person, and he was very astonished to find out, like, I can't remember where he said elsewhere he was from, but he was quite astonished to know that he had a bit of that, a bit of that, and a bit of that. So it's pretty nice.
Yes, it's great. I think it's cool. I think it's nice that people are a bit of a mixture, you know. I don't think that they should be forced into being a mixture, but I think if they are, I think that's great. You know, I mean, I've always thought multiculturalism and multinationalism is a wonderful thing. And I still think it is. Next question, honey.
Nice. So for our next question today is from Janice Wood. Lady C, do you know what the royal family really thinks of Meghan? Do they think she is as manipulative full of herself and narcissistic, as most people say?
Sorry. Gosh. Somebody wants to drop me in it in a big way. Do you want the short answer or the long answer? What do you think I should give them? The short answer or the long answer?
It's totally up to you.
Well, let me put it this way. If you read my book, Meghan and Harry, The Real Story, I have quoted what various members of the royal family have said their opinions of Meghan are. It caused us a great deal of grief, a great deal of stress, and caused a lot of not only legal problems, but also personal problems, because some of the information that I impart in the book, and it's done very delicately, but it's done very definitely. Some of the family had said certain things to people to whom they are very close, whom they trust, and whom they said things unguardedly, not necessarily for repetition. Now, being a decent person as well as a responsible writer, I'm not going to betray confidences and drop people in it to the extent that they become identifiable, so that if, for instance, a member of the royal family reads my book, that they say, "Oh, I don't believe it. I said that to such and such on such and such a day at such and such a time. I remember it exactly," because some of the comments were so scorching that I do not believe that they would have been widely said and frequently said. And so we had the challenge of conveying the flavor of the comment, or to hint at the comment, in such a way that we were not going to betray our sources and betray the royals who had given their opinions. I would suggest, if you really want to know what some of the royals said, it's much better to read it in a book, because in a book you can dance your way around the issue in a way that you cannot do it conversationally. And you can slip in the fact in a way that conversationally it is not possible to do. Do you think I've made my position clear?
Yeah.
Do you think I've answered the question in such a way that people actually have got an idea of the answer?
Yeah, I think so. It's like, basically, if they understand it, it's they're saying what they say, but they're not saying exactly everything they're supposed to say.
And they're not, well, also a lot of what has been said has never been for public consumption and will never be, in much the same way that we say things privately that we would never say publicly. We all do it. Everybody does it. And it would be really rather mean to, expose the reality of their opinions quite so boldly. I think it would not be kind, would it? And I mean, I think I've actually answered the question quite exhaustively by not answering it in one word. I think there can be little doubt as to what my answer is, and little doubt as to the fact that certain facts exist which it is not necessarily convenient or desirable to impart in any great detail at this time. What do you think?
Totally agree.
Next question, honey.
No worries. So for our next question today is from Danny A. Question for Lady C. If you believe that Meghan never had intentions to stay in the royal family, do you think that Harry was aware of this? I agree with you wholeheartedly, but I wonder if you are aware if Harry had already been planning his own escape from the royal family and that she was the perfect partner for this, or if she really is just leading him by the collar.
Well, I can think of a four-letter word that begins with C that other people would say she was leading him by, as opposed to his collar. Like calf, his calf. She's leading him by his calf. C-A-L-F. You know, everybody with responsibility struggles with it at some time. I don't know anybody who does not bemoan at some point the fact that their responsibilities are burdensome. No matter how much you embrace your destiny, I am yet to have ever heard of the individual who never once decried the fact that their lot in life is heavy. That means that Harry, like any other normal person, would at times decry the fact that he was a prince of the United Kingdom and had duties that he didn't always want to fulfill, that he wasn't always in the mood to fulfill, that he wasn't always capable of fulfilling through lack of talent, intelligence, motivation, whatever. But there is little doubt that Harry was perfectly happy to remain within the royal fold, despite his complaints about it. In much the same way that other people say, oh, I just hate my life. Well, they may do for that second, but they're not about to give it up. You know, and you need to, there's a difference between blowing off steam and having a heartfelt desire to escape. He had absolutely no hint of the fact that he wished to escape. All that is said now for people to think that it was Harry's idea as opposed to Meghan's idea is to cover for the fact that it was her idea and he is the one who has gone along with it. She grabbed his calf and he's walked with it. So
I believe so, because a lot of people of our generation, of course, at my age, you want to move out, you want to start your own life, but if you live in London, it's quite expensive. For him, that shouldn't have been any problem. So if he wanted to go wherever he wanted to do or what he wanted to do, he could have done it. And like you said, she just grabbed him and pulled him right out.
I have no doubt of what I have been told, that without Meghan, Harry would still be a fully paid up member of the royal family, And I have no doubt that all of this was entirely her idea, that she was very careful to plant the seeds and water them diligently so that they would flower and provide her with the fruit of her endeavor. The fruit of her endeavor is ever increasing fame and wealth, and ever increasing, she hopes, influence in the world at large as a major player. She couldn't have done this and achieved her objective by remaining within the royal family. He, on the other hand, actually, I'm just going to cut to the chase and say, read Othello by William Shakespeare and listen to what Iago does to Othello to get him to jettison Desdemona. Well, we can replace Desdemona with the rest of the family, and it's the oldest trick in the book. It's the oldest story in the book. There's nothing new about the fact that she has done what millions of other people have done over the years. What has been unique is that she was able to do it with a member of the British royal family, and nobody else has ever done anything like this, ever. They have voluntarily bolted, because let's remember, the Duke and Duchess of Windsor's situation is not akin to the Sussex's situation. The Duke of Windsor gave up his throne as Edward VIII to marry Wallis. The agreement with the family was that at the end of a year's exile, they would return and he would take up the role as the most junior brother in the family, because of course he would have been the most junior brother in the family because he was the last of the royal dukes of that generation. And precedence is done by proximity to the throne as well as date of creation of a peerage. So for all sorts of reasons, he wanted to come back as the youngest son, despite having been the eldest son. But he wanted to come back, and he spent decades trying to come back. And on his deathbed, when he was dying, his dying words were, "The waste, the waste, the waste of it all." He never got over the fact that he was not allowed to return to the royal fold and use his talents and abilities to enhance the monarchy as a member of the royal family. And I think it's very important to remember the Duke of Windsor's dying words, because they show very clearly that he had no intention of bolting, and certainly the idea that he was going to bolt to trade upon his royal status to make himself a whole load of money was definitely never a part of the picture.
I don't think so.
Definitely wasn't.
He had a routine of going out, being in a club, staying out quite late, going back home and doing that again. And then all of a sudden he's dating this lady, and then he's married the next few weeks after, and then he's changed countries. So it all happened very quickly. So you got to say it kind of been all of his decision, because he was never planning to go do any of this.
Well, he certainly wasn't planning it before.
That's what I mean, yeah.
He definitely wasn't planning it before.
As we all know, yeah.
And in my book, I show how had only known each other for a short while, because remember, they didn't live in the same country, and they had only had a short number of dates
Exactly.
when magically,
They're in love.
no, they were in love from the word go, because as Omid Scobie points out in his book, of course, when I said it, I was roundly abused, but when he said it, nobody abused him in the press, that Harry has been under a spell from Meghan ever since he met her. He says it in his book, which is very interesting. But it also, but what the point I was going to make was that after a few dates, somehow, magically, the Sunday Express was informed not only about the relationship between Harry and Meghan, but that she had met Charles, that everybody thought she was wonderful, and that very same day that first article was published, all over America, publications just fell into line with information that had clearly been provided by Meghan's camp, because they couldn't have got the information otherwise.
Also, any parent or any human being that's going to meet somebody's boyfriend or girlfriend will always be nice and pretend like, oh, she's a lovely person, and behind her back maybe, oh no, she was dreadful, I didn't like her. So saying that on the first time meeting somebody and going to set it off to the newspaper is completely stupid. Because of course you're going to be nice and decent to the person at the first time you meet her or him. So
But
I'd love to see a parent present their girlfriend to you and you'd be like, no, she's ugly. No, that dress doesn't work well. No, come on, that would just be bad on the mother or the father, of course.
yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And but it served the purpose of converting her in the public mind into Harry's girlfriend. And it created an obligation within him to treat her more seriously than he might otherwise have been inclined to do. It's been a series of dexterous maneuvers created by, I'm not going to say who, but definitely somebody leaked that story to the Sunday Express, and the full account of it is in my book, Meghan and Harry, The Real Story, as indeed is the consequences of the leaking and the readiness of all the publicity to just slot into place. I mean, such preparedness when it was all a surprise. It's really quite mystifying, isn't it?
Yes, I've always said a relationship that starts off too quick like that doesn't usually end well.
Well, darling, you are looking at the living embodiment of marrying in haste and repenting at leisure.
We've all seen it. We've all seen shows about it, so we all know how it's going to end. Or maybe we'll be wrong, but who knows? Pretty sure I'm right.
Well, we will simply have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's always a waiting game.
Yeah. And on that note, honey, thank you very much for your help and your input. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Please keep the comments coming in and the questions. And
Well, thank you, everybody, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, please hit the like button, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thank you very much, and goodbye.